Since 2003, this is the Sports Source, East Tennessee's #1 sports talk show.
Presented by Pipe Wrench, and by Junk Be Gone, and by the Garza Law Firm.
With your host, John Pennington. The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Sports Source here in the Junk Be Gone studio. I appreciate you being with us today. We have a packed show for you. Tennessee really rolls past Missouri, 66-24, knocks them for a loop. That's what, 120. I did this a few weeks ago and couldn't add right because I had 3 hours sleep, but I'm pretty sure 62 and 66 is like 128 points. You guys correct me? I think that's right. 128 points on Missouri the last 2 years for Josh Heupel, their former offensive coordinator. Was there anything to him running it up? We'll debate that today. Playoff scenarios, we'll give you 3 good ones just to mess around with. We'll also have our coach here on set break down how Georgia defended Tennessee a couple of weeks ago, what can be taken from that, compare Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia coverages, how they all tried to play Tennessee, why it worked for one, not for the other. Lots of stuff to get into, so let's do so. First segment of today's program brought to you by the Garza Law Firm. When it comes to legal help, you need an attorney or attorneys who know the local justice system, the local attorneys, the local judges, the local investigators. That means you need a local attorney yourself representing you. And anywhere in East Tennessee, that means you need the Garza Law Firm. Visit garzalaw.com to learn more about Marcos Garza and his team. They are local. They are East Tennessee, and that means all over East Tennessee. Just opened a new office up in Jacksboro, for example. garzalaw.com. All right, let's welcome in the first group of panelists we have today, right down here from 99.1 The Sports Animal. Jimmy Himes is with us. Jimmy, thanks for being here.
Good to be here. Thank you, John.
Justin Hamilton back with us, former Virginia Tech football player, former Cleveland Brown, former Washington pre-commander, former defensive coordinator at Virginia Tech, and longtime Vol fan.
Long time.
Thanks for being here.
Sorry, John.
No.
Long time. I only show up when Tennessee wins.
There you go. That's right. That's right. You've learned well. Bob Hodge, of course, longtime member of this panel. Thanks for being with us again.
Glad to be here.
And right down there, Will Overstreet, former Vol, former NFL player. Will, longtime member of this panel as well. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Yep, glad to be here.
Okay. We always start with the big picture, and let's start with some big things. Big points, big win. Vols scored 66 points yesterday against the number 13 defense in the country, 128 points the last 2 games against Missouri. Set a school record yesterday with 724 yards of total offense, and that one felt a lot better than the record they broke when they had to outgun Troy a few years ago in a Sal Sunseri special. Vols with the 9th regular season win for the first time since 2007. It's been 15 years since they won 9 games in the regular season. It's also been 15 years since they went undefeated at Neyland Stadium for an entire year. And that's just the second time since 1999. So it only happened in 2007 is the only other time this century when you've done it. So this team continues to surprise, continues to set records week after week, whether it's offense or victories, they're getting them. So let me ask you, and I'll start down there with Will Overstreet. Takeaways yesterday. What was your big takeaway from Tennessee's win over Missouri?
New weapon. I mean, I thought this time of the year, you usually don't go to a magic show 4 or 5 times the same person and see not something different. So they brought out a new weapon, and Dylan Sampson had a great game, and it was a surprise. I mean, something you wouldn't have thought that at this point in the year, putting someone new out there and him being explosive and looking like he deserves a lot more playing time.
We saw him earlier in the year, and he looked good, and then I wondered how much of that was he doesn't understand protections, because protections are a huge part of this offense for running backs.
That's it. They've even acknowledged that. And he missed a couple in a recent game, and so he basically sat for 2 games because of that. So that's the reason he hasn't played as much lately.
And I will leave on that note. It's the George Costanza. Correct? And I leave. All right. Bob Hodge, what was your big takeaway?
New weapons. I went with new wrinkles. That this offense, at this point in the season, after you've played 10 games, you're still growing it, you're still changing it, you're still adding stuff to it. And I think that's kind of refreshing that you haven't sat on your laurels. I mean, let's look at Jeremy Pruitt's tenure here. Their offense changed what? Oh, yeah, nothing. 3 years. And so the fact that you're still going through the season and bringing in new weapons and using them in new ways, I think it's pretty impressive.
That's perfect, and this wasn't planned, but I've got some video here. I want to show you. Just let this thing roll. If we can go here. If we've got the video. We don't have the video. I thought we did. Okay. Welcome to my world. There we go. All right, here we go. Dylan Sampson right there gets the arrow, so they bring him in. Tennessee's up 28-24. This is the third quarter. So they bring him in. They do the swing pass to him. So Missouri's paying attention to him. They're like, wow, who's this fast guy they're throwing to out of the backfield now? And they line him up wide now. So Missouri's paying close attention to Dylan Sampson. So he's out wide. Oh, and they're not paying attention to Jalen Hyatt, who's now tucked behind the tight end that goes completely uncovered. And I think that's what you're talking about when you're talking
Yes.
about, well, there's Dylan Sampson and how they're using him. You're paying attention to him, and meanwhile, we're doing something different with Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah,
Exactly.
added a lot more speed and game breaker on that field, so all of a sudden everybody looks around and goes, uh-oh, that guy can hurt us, paying attention to him, and obviously...
And forgetting a guy that you should have been
That
going,
is hurting
uh-oh,
you
that
the whole
guy does
time.
hurt you. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, big picture. What were your takeaways?
Maturity of the football team for me to battle back. First time you've had to answer the questions of a loss this season, and then to respond, to answer, to come back in a noon kick, senior day at Neyland Stadium, and to play in the way that everyone that's a Tennessee fan or a Tennessee observer of this season expected them to play.
Even when it got a little dicey, I don't think anyone thought Missouri was going to beat them. But when it's 28-24, I'm sitting there thinking, how much is it going to help you with the committee, the playoff committee?
Yeah.
And then it's like, wake-up call. That happened right there, and it was off to the races. Jimmy, what was your big takeaway from that game?
John, so Tennessee struggles against Georgia, and Georgia shuts them down. So you're wondering, okay, where's this offense? Tennessee, when it played Alabama, Alabama had the number 1 defense in the SEC. When it played Kentucky, Kentucky had the number 2 defense. Missouri had the number 4 defense. What did Tennessee do to those teams? They averaged 54 points and 575 yards per game in those contests. So anybody not named Georgia, you're going to have trouble stopping Tennessee's offense. I thought it was incredible what they did to what had been a pretty sound defense in Missouri.
What's amazing is when you look at this offense, you could make the case that SEC defenses aren't what they once were. Mm-hmm. At the same time, Heupel was doing this 5 and 6 years ago before the defenses in this conference started to trail off. Yeah. He did this when he was at Missouri. They were putting up 500 and something yards per game. So I don't think, even though it's true the league doesn't play as good a defense, the number 1 defense in the league isn't, well, Georgia is. The number 2 through 4 aren't as good as they used to be. I don't think that really plays into this. I think it's just how good that offense is. How difficult is it for, as a defensive coordinator, to watch what they're doing?
It's hard to watch because you feel the pain of the people trying to stop it. And you go in with the best laid plans every week. You practice it, you talk about it, you've seen what they do. You know what you're going to get, or at least, we saw some surprises. You have a pretty good idea. And you watch it happen over and over and over, and the numbers run up on the yardage, the numbers run up on the points, and you just...
The numbers running up on the points at halftime, I'm thinking, Tennessee's offense has looked a little sluggish. Hadn't looked great.
Yeah,
28
And they scored
points.
28 points.
and had more yards in a half than Missouri was giving up on
Yes.
average for a game.
But it still looked like, you could really improve some stuff here. I mean, it's ruining watching football, as you and I have talked about.
Well, it's literally, if they're not up 50-6, what's wrong?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
Exactly.
They're not
When-
firing on all cylinders.
When people are not running wide open, everybody's like, man, they had a bad coaching game.
I know.
They didn't coach them up right.
How did they let him get covered?
My only fear for Josh Heupel is he's done this too quickly. He's built the expectations now. You needed to stair step it rather than year 1 you're putting up offense, year 2 you're 11-1 and putting 725 on the board. Because people are going to be, okay, well, I'm kind of bored with this. When are you going to get 800? It's tough. When I was getting the same text yesterday, well, they look kind of sluggish today.
Yeah, I know.
28 points and nearly 400 yards.
They failed to get a couple of 4th downs in that first half. What's wrong with them?
Well, and I was wondering if it could negatively impact recruiting.
Right. I thought it was supposed to be exciting.
Well, I was just thinking, too, you got to recruit a punter. Who wants to come?
Hug a defensive coach. Just hug defensive coaches you know.
All right, very good. Well, let me tell you what's coming up on the rest of this show. First of all, we've got 3 playoff scenarios we're going to break down for you. These are going to be interesting. I made them difficult intentionally, so we'll debate those. Would Tennessee get in these 3 situations? How teams defended Tennessee, specifically Georgia. We've talked about probably nobody's going to be able to take everything away, but are there little pieces they can take? Senior class. Our VFLs will talk about how this senior class will be remembered. Are there any fears versus Carolina? You never want to be one of those guys that thinks, well, they'll blow this team out because that's when you get bit. But I kind of feel that way, don't we all? So we'll debate, are there any fears for this Carolina game? Cavaliers line for those of us who still have cash remaining, and that's not many of us, and then much, much more. All right, when we come back, what did we learn from yesterday's game? And specifically, what was up with that last touchdown? Is there some bad blood between Josh Heupel, Missouri, Josh Heupel, and Eli Drinkwitz? What's up? We'll talk about it next. Come on back on the Sports Source.